video. And I'm just going to show you what our agenda today is. So I'm going to talk about how to get help in the library, how to find the company industry resources. We're going to walk through a few of the databases. I didn't put them on here, but you'll see where they are and how you can access them. And then hopefully we'll have some time at the end for questions. I know a lot of people, this is your lunch hour, and so a lot of people don't want to wait for questions. They just want to go back to work or do what they were doing. So if you don't have questions at the end, that's totally fine. All right, so I'm going to head to the library homepage. Hopefully many of you have already been here. If not, welcome. So from the library homepage, to get help from the library, you'll see an Ask a Librarian button in the upper right-hand corner. So I always point this out regardless of what I'm teaching, because I think it's important that you guys know that you can reach out to us one way or another. You can email us. Sometimes students, they get concerned, well, how fast do you guys respond? It's usually within 24 hours, and I can tell you it's usually a lot sooner than that. So if you're an undergraduate or a master's student or a doctoral, it doesn't matter what level you're at, send us a question about, if you're trying to find an article of full text or you're trying to find a specific database. I know I can't remember if it's an MBA course, has you look for Hoovers, which is actually now absorbed by Business Market Research Collection. We'll go over that. So just know if you have questions, you can email them. We also have a chat function. It is open 7 days a week, just not 24 hours. The hours are posted here. Voicemail, so you can leave us a message and then we'll email you back. And then if you're a doctoral appointment, you can make an appointment with me to discuss whatever it is that you need, and we can go from there. So back at the library homepage, I wanted to point out two more things on this homepage, and then we'll dig into the subject-specific things that we're covering today. So if you're not sure where to start, maybe you're looking for information on a particular company, you can type that in here. For today's webinar, I've stolen Starbucks. So if you wanted to start, search for Starbucks in our multi-database Thoreau, you certainly could. Just to get an idea of where to start, maybe you'll find peer-reviewed articles discussing Starbucks. You might find some reports in there, depending on which databases it's dug through and how it's done relevance ranking. So feel free to use Thoreau, which is that search bar at on the main page here. And then if you have questions, I don't think there's anything super specific to what we're talking about today, other than maybe finding a specific database. So if you click on search everything, it's going to show you, a bunch of website content that the library has, and then a bunch of QAs that might be specific. So in general, this would be helpful if you're looking for a database in the library that has a specific type of material. So it may be industry reports or something like that, or legal work or case studies or something like that. If you're looking for a specific database, or if you're looking for databases by subject, these quick answers are really great for covering that kind of information. Say if it's 1 in the morning and you need some instruction here and now and don't want to have to wait for the library to open. So I just wanted to show you what those two options are at the top of the page, because I think they're important. The next thing I want to point out is our library skills guides. So some of the content that we're going to be talking about today can be found in a couple of guides that we have here in the library, but I just want to show you where they are, and then we'll go into the actual databases. So if you go to library skills, and then we're going to click on library skills again. I know this is a lot of clicking, and I'll try and go slow enough that you guys can follow along. I have a habit of clicking right through just because I know exactly where everything is and I don't want to lose you. So we have a bunch of general information literacy, library research help on this main page. But what I want to take you to is our topic guides. So if you scroll down to business and management, there's a few here that are outside of what we're talking about today, but I want to show you that we do have a company research guide and an industry research guide. So a lot of this content is covered in each one of these guides. What I'll be going through is more like step-by-step and what's in each one. But in general, both of these guides will give you an idea like, oh, okay, well, I don't have to rewatch the whole webinar. How do I get to that one database? Or how do I look for company profile information in maybe just a general subject area database? So There's a lot of content in here that you might find useful. If anybody wants me to walk back on how I got there, I'm certainly happy to do that. I think I might also have it linked on the next page we're about to go to, which is these under select a subject, under our subject resources, we're going to go to business and management. And so a lot of the business and management content that you'll find in the library is in here. So not all of the databases are listed. We have 5 of the main databases related to business and management listed here. It's not a comprehensive list, it's just a place to start. Where we'll be working off of is this company profiles and industry reports list. I want to show you all the cool content that's in these databases. Okay, and then the next thing I want to point out is our common business topics. So that industry research and company research guides are linked in here as well, so you can find them all in one place. But I just want you to know that that content is in multiple places and that if you need it, it's there for you. So I'm not going to spend any time in the business and management databases unless we have a little bit of extra at the end and anybody wants me to cover some other things you can do in here. But for right now, I think we're going to just start with IBIS World. So I'm not sure if everybody has had a chance to dig into IBIS World or not. I'm not going to go into every single kind of listing that they have available, but you'll notice they have industry reports from the US, Canada, the UK, Ireland, Deutschland. So they have German reports, but they are in fact in German. So unless you're fluent, I mean, you can check them out, or you could try the Google Translate to see what you're able to follow along with. They have China, Mexico, and then a little bit more from the US and Canada. I'm not going to spend too much time in this section. I am going to show you the US business environmental reports or profiles because I think those are kind of cool. But just know that the information provided in each one of these as far as industry reports is pretty similar. They're just focused on different countries. So you'll notice this first one says US industry reports, NAICS. So this actually stands for North American Identification Classification System. Hopefully I got that right. And that is how the US government indexes different industries. So if I click on it, they kind of have it here by, sub-industry to help you identify, which area you might be interested in. For the sake of today's webinar, I dug into the coffee and snack shops just because I did do a search for, I was looking at Starbucks as far as what our main theme for going through, because I usually like to pick a company that I know that's going to have a lot of content for us to look at. But I'm going to go ahead and click on this coffee and snack shops option. You'll notice that that NAICS code, what I was talking about earlier, is listed directly to the left-hand side. So if you click on that title and number, it'll give you some identifications as to, what's going on with this industry, what are the sub-industries that are related to it, who are the major players. Again, you'll see Starbucks is listed right there. So if you wanted to know more about Starbucks, you could click on it and get a little bit more information about their market share. But I'll head back to this initial overview of the coffee and snack shops. So then it gives you similar industries with their NAICS codes associated with them. And of course, you can click into these to find more information. Additional resources, so associations that are related. I think the BLS is listed here because it does talk about employment, glossary information if you're not sure which each of these sections is going to cover. So I like the industry at a glance because it just gives you a basic overview of what they're talking about throughout the rest of the content, all these different tabs that you see listed here. Depending on what you're trying to research, this might be helpful. Maybe you need something that's a little bit more in depth. Maybe you just want this for your reference. I know some of you were looking at creating a business plan. It would be good to know, well, is this a hard industry to get into? How much revenue is there in this particular industry? So this could be a helpful page to just get started. So if you click on industry performance, it gives you like consumer spending, current performance, how has it gone over the last 10 years, maybe a little bit longer. Gives you some information about how the industry has grown or changed, and then about the current revenue that's going on. So industry outlook. So I mean, there's not really a SWOT here, but it is looking, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But it does kind of give you an idea for, how it's growing, any new regulations that might be an issue, what's the life cycle of this particular industry. So these can be helpful points if you're looking to, again, research maybe a business plan. And so I had somebody looking for Netflix, and I think I'll use that as an example for maybe our next database. I think that would actually be a good one. So if we hit a wall of Netflix, we'll bounce back to Starbucks, but I will definitely give that a try. So that is another good question. So before I dig into the next tabs, the next question was, once you graduate, will you have access to these particular databases? And unfortunately, no. We wish we could provide that, but it's an agreement with the database vendors that this information or the access to the database only goes to current students or staff or faculty. But on the plus side, if you live in the United States, there are a lot of public libraries that have access to very similar databases, and we can help you identify those. So, but you're of course still welcome to email the library and get help with stuff like that. So even if you don't have access to IBIS World or the other databases that I'm discussing today, we can help you, we can point you in the right direction. All right. So some of the products and markets that might fall under this category. So, maybe they're selling sandwiches, which includes beef and pork products, or, the dairy that needs to go in with the lattes or something like that. You're going to have a bunch of sub-industries that fall into that category. And of course, you can scroll through this whole thing and get more content. I'm not going to do that. I just want to explain what's going on here. Competitive landscape. So, if you want to figure out how competitive it is, what kind of wages they provide, what kind of profit there is, other things that might be going on, and especially I think they might have some information about, oh, here it is, barriers to entry, how hard is it to get into a franchise? Is it hard to find a location or a place to lease? Other helpful information as far as how does this, if you wanted to start a business or how do these businesses get started, this could be really, really helpful. Major companies, again, this is where when I clicked on Starbucks, it popped us to this page to show you that Starbucks has 23% of the market share. And then it shows you the other big names that are out there, Krispy Kreme, coffee and bagel brands, although I've never heard of them, but maybe they're a larger company that has a bunch of subsidiaries. And then you've got Dunkin' Donuts, Tim Hortons, and I'm sure there's a few others in there that if we kept digging, we might be able to find them. Operating conditions. Again, I'm not going to scroll through that whole thing, but know that it's there. And then the key statistics. And if you like numbers, this is a great place to come because you're going to get a bunch of tables that give you an overview of the last few years with some different data points that might be of interest to you. All right, so the next thing I want to point out, and we'll head back to that IBIS World main page, is the Expert Summaries. All right, so I'm just going to click on that same industry again, just so you can see a comparison. And it's basically just an overview of the content we already saw, but they're condensing it in a way that's a little easier to absorb as opposed to having to go through every single one of those pages. But just know if you happen to be on the iExpert page, or if you happen to be back on that general industry page, you can toggle between them at the top here. So if you're like, okay, well, this doesn't cover employment for this industry, I could go back to that industry section and then head back to that area to find that information. And then again, if you wanted to go back to that iExpert report, all you have to do is click on that link. If you wanted to print this as a PDF for your reference, I'll wait for it and hopefully it says yes. Good. Excellent. So you could print this off for your own reference, come back to it later. But just know that there are a few things in there that you can use and to keep track of what you found. The next thing I wanted to point out, great, is the specialized industry reports. Again, these are a little bit more specific. And so hopefully I had to go back and do this way. There we go. All right, so these are a little bit more specific than, say, the general NAICS codes that we had. These are going to be more like franchises or goods and services, or like specific kinds of things that fall under an industry. So dental insurance or home owner's insurance, that would fall under industry, or the insurance industry as a large part. So if you click on coffee store franchises, and I'm just using this again because we were looking at that earlier, it gives you very similar information, but it's going to be looking at the franchises themselves as opposed to the industry information. So I just wanted to give you an idea of how this information would differ. So, I mean, go in here, I'm not going to click on every single one of these because this information is going to be very, very similar. But it's just going to be a little bit more hyper-focused on what we've already chosen. So check that out, with, depending on what you're looking for. If you feel like you're having a hard time finding information on a particular industry or something that falls under a specific industry, email the library and we'll do our best to help you find it. And it might not be in IBIS. We might be able to find it in one of our other databases. I'm just keeping an eye on time because we have several other databases to go through and I don't want to run out of time. All right, so just know that if you wanted in a shortened version of what we just looked at, we could look at the Expert Summaries. Again, it's very much like that industry Expert Summary, where it's just going to give you like the 2-page overview. The next thing I wanted to point out was the U.S. Business Environmental Profiles. I think these are pretty interesting just because you can look at consumer behavior or something a little bit broader like government spending. So if you wanted to look at, I think I picked on the dairy consumption, and I do that as kind of a joke because I live in Dairyland. I live in Minnesota, so I'm right next to Wisconsin, which is the land of dairy. So if you click on per capita dairy consumption, you can come in here and see what's going on with the U.S. dairy consumption. How has it changed over the last 30 or 30 some years? How is it expected to change in the future? And you can look at any of these and figure out, how is this changing in the current marketplace? So the other thing I want to point is the U.S. government section. Of course, you're more than welcome to look at those other ones as well. I just thought these were kind of interesting data points to check out. So if you want to see how the U.S. government funding for universities has changed over the last 20 years, that's another interesting data point. So it's looking at, what's the forecast value, and then of course it gives you historical information on how much the U.S. government has spent on federal monies for U.S. universities, and then what the percentage change of that is and how it's expected to change in the future. So those are a couple of other reports in IBIS. But just know that you don't have to stick to those. If you're looking for demographic information, you can come in here and see what they have. If you want to look at crime rate or divorce rate, marriage rate, depending on what you're hoping to find. Okay. So we're going to hop out of IBIS World. I don't see any other questions about IBIS. Hopefully you learned a little bit about what's going on in there. So this is another one of my favorite databases to find company and industry information. I think this one's a little bit easier to find specific company information in. Oh yeah, there's somebody who's looking for Netflix. So let's see if we can find information on Netflix. So you could just start by doing a general search. That's totally fine. I'm going to show you what happens when you do that. We're just going to search for Netflix. And it looks like Netflix Inc. popped up right at the very top. And just looking at this, I know this is going to be a company profile, but if you're not sure what kind of resources you're looking at, what you can do is you can scroll down and look at document type, and it'll show you there's an industry report, general reports, market research, company profiles, and then some information on what's happening with Netflix in the news. You can click on more and see what else they have here, although country report and undefined is maybe not super helpful. But you know, depending on what you type in here, you might get more. So if you wanted to click on this, let's go ahead and do that before I do a more specific search to show you guys how to narrow this down. So you'll see Hoovers here. Again, if anybody has seen Hoovers listed in their classroom, they do company profiles. I think these are really cool because they give you a lot of information. They look at key financials, company rankings, key people in that company, board of directors, CEOs, competition, where are they headquartered, how much do they make every year, what's their profit, what are their assets, what's their market value, are they a Fortune 500, are they in Fortune 1000, are they a fast growing company? And I'm not going to scroll through too much more. I think you guys get it. I just don't want to make you guys dizzy either. I know it's not fun to watch people scroll through content if you don't get to sit and enjoy it. So just know that you can come in here and check out those company profiles to get a greater understanding of, context for that company, how they've grown since they've been, available or publicly traded, and who their CEO is again, or any other information you might be able to gather from that company profile. So heading back, I'm going to go to this advanced search. I want to show you a couple things that you could do. So we already have Netflix typed in here. So if you wanted to change what kind of documents are available as part of your search result, you could change that here. You could say, well, I only want company profile information, or I only want general information, or I want to see if there's any market reports or market research having to do with Netflix. But one of the other easy things to do, if you're in here and you're looking at a larger organization, is to look up the company or organization name. And then we have Netflix Inc. So that's how they've indexed them, as Netflix Inc. So we're going to click Add to Search, and we're looking for the exact phrase, company Netflix Inc. And this is going to narrow down our search by a lot. Yeah, so we only have 3 different results here. It looks like if we look at, whoops, I didn't mean to do that, document title, we've got a country report and 2 country reports and a company profile. So there's not a ton in here on Netflix, but there's at least a company profile and a little bit of other information that you might find useful. So I'm going to go back and pick on my friend Starbucks. All right, so they're using Starbucks Corp, which is just fine. We're going to add that to the search and rerun the search. And it looks like we have plenty of things to search from. If you want, again, to see what they had here, so if you wanted to look at market research specifically, we could look at, and these are actually pretty old. This is 2002, 2003. So if we did an industry search for coffee or coffee shops, we might be able to look for more market research specific to that industry, as opposed to having something that includes Starbucks. So just keep that in mind. Let's undo that. And then you could say, all right, well, I only really want to look at their company profile. And there it is at the top, last updated October 1st, 2019. Of course, you could change that date range here if you want, maybe you have something that dates back to 2001, you want something a little newer, you could change the date range in here to 2016 or whatever you're hoping for and click update. Okay, and then so they also have some suggested searches here. So you could look for Starbucks and coffee houses, or Starbucks and coffee, or beverage industry. There could be a lot of different ways to change your search if you want to. The other thing you can do here, and I'm going to delete this, is look up the NAICS codes. So you could do this by searching for a specific one. If you already had the NAICS codes, they actually have a link here. So if you wanted to go find it, oh, of course, it's being difficult. All right. So you can just search for the U.S. government NAICS codes through their website. If anybody wants me to show you how to do that, I can certainly do that after we've gone through these. But as far as looking up, something related to what we're discussing, which is the coffee shops, you could come in here and, oh no, did I click on the wrong one? You could just look for coffee. Let's do coffee. Could do a coffee or coffee shop or We could narrow it down. We'll just say coffee and tea manufacturing. I'm going to go with the longer NAICS code because I think that's going to give us some more results. Or you could do both and just see what you can find. And hopefully that actually added it to our results here. Otherwise, we're going to get a lot of content. Nope. Okay. Let's do that. We'll just say coffee and tea. Great. Great. So then you can come down here again and look and see what kind of publications that are available. Again, if you want to look at market reports, there'll be, a list here. The broader you go, the more results you're going to get as far as what kind of information is available. A broader industry is going to give you a lot. So if we just had food and beverage, it would be even broader than what we had put in for coffee and tea. So it's up to you how you want to do that. Oh, all right, so that's a good one. Let's just try cashews. A student had requested we do a search for cashews. And then we could say import. Great. So here are all the reports and other details that they might have in here related to import of cashews. So it just depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for how much a certain company imported, how many cashews they imported, or are you looking at it as an industry? So maybe it might be helpful to look at fruit and tree nut farming, what was their export out of a certain country into the US or vice versa. It just depends on what you're looking for. Okay. Don't see any questions about business market research collection. I think we got through most of the information I wanted to cover. So I think we'll move on to GuideStar. If you're interested in researching nonprofits, this is the way to go. A lot of this information, and I'll show you where I clicked on it, is under that company profiles and industry reports, and then I clicked on GuideStar. So GuideStar pulls a lot of their information from the IRS forms that the government pulls because they have to, they file as nonprofits. So a lot of that information comes from the IRS, and some of the information actually comes from those nonprofits themselves. So if you want to do a more advanced search in GuideStar, you'll click on search in the upper left here. You can do it by geography. So if you're hoping to find certain kinds of nonprofits in a certain area, you could start by looking at a zip code. So I'm going to pick on good old Minneapolis and say within a 50-mile radius of downtown Minneapolis, there are 32,000, almost 33,000 nonprofits. So if you clicked on organization, you could click on this cause area. If you wanted to see how many of them are animal related, you could change that drop down. And now we're down to 494. If you wanted to look at their, the nonprofits with 72 or less people, we're down to 73. And then if you wanted to see what kind of revenue they have, if they're, maybe they're, say, 2 million. That seems like a lot. Now we're down to 68 as far as what we've limited to. So we can go back, we would say within 55401, that zip code, in a 50-mile radius, there are 68 animal-related nonprofit organizations that make up to $2.3 million. So that's how you would narrow this down. There's a lot of other limiters that you can take advantage of while you're looking through here. It just depends on what you're hoping to find out. To look at these, if you click on the title of the nonprofit, you'll get a summary information about, how old that nonprofit is, their NAICS code, they fall under, looks like environment, conservation, and wildlife organizations. You'll also see SIC codes, which is the standard industrial code, which has been replaced by the NAICS code. But they do give you information here. If you click on the little I logo, it'll give you more information about those codes. You can look at the IRS filing records. It shows you where that is. Some of these aren't completely filled out, but it does show you profile or financial information, operation information if it's available. So, you know, who's the founder or the CEO or director, and then if there's a board of directors list. Let's try and find one that has a little bit more information. Humane Society, I think they probably have a little bit more information just because they are a broader organization. It looks like they don't have quite as much. They've got a little bit here. So you can look at their financial trends information, balance sheet, revenue and expenses, what are their contributions, how much do their programs cost, what does that money go towards, you know, accounting fees, insurance expenses, and then, you know, how much, some of them will tell you how much each person makes depending on, you know, how big the organization is and how much they, you know, they make per year. Highest paid employees. Again, a lot of that information is a lot more available for or nonprofits that have a higher contribution rate. Okay, that's a good question. So question is, how do you find salaries of executives within an industry of behavioral health? So what I would do for that, I wouldn't necessarily, you could look at industry information in general, but I don't know if they're going to break it down by career. I think the best bet is to look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and kind of go through what information they're able to provide you as far as career information based off of industry. But, you know, I can follow up with you after the webinar and we could talk about that a little bit. But I mean, you could come in here and take a look too, you know, how the top 100 organizations near you, how much are those people making in that industry area, if it's listed. So GuideStar is really, really cool. You know, I think it's really nice to be able to have this information all at once. Having to go through the IRS website and pull all of their filings and kind of accumulate that information on your own is a lot of work. If you want to see those forms, you can click on it here and they have it in an easier to chew kind of format, which is nice. You don't have to go search through their the IRS's database to try and find that information for yourself. But you know, a lot of times I think, you know, if you're in the DBA program, there's a consultant capstone where you might want to try and find a nonprofit to work with. This is a great resource for that. Or maybe you're looking at doing a business plan for a nonprofit and you want to see what other people are doing, you know, how many employees they have, you know, how much contributions they're able to get a year, and this might be able to help you with that research. So moving on from GuideStar, I'm just going to open this quickly. This is only helpful if you're looking for specific content. So we have the Market Research Reporter, and this is very, very specific. And this is a little outdated. We're currently purchasing the 2019 version, so know that this will get updated soon. But basically what you're going to do is come in here, and these are really, really broad, but it gives you an idea of how much I'll click on one and you'll see. So we're going to start with airlines. So operating revenue and net profit, again, that NAICS code, the definition of what the airline industry is, an overview for that information, current trends. I'm not going to scroll through this whole thing because it's pretty long, but just know that this is a faster way to get to something more specific as opposed to going through the business market research collection or looking in IBIS. It's all just one there in a lump area. Of course, this doesn't cover every topic available, but if you're looking at a large overview of an industry, this is a great place to go. Again, the 2019 version should be available soon. All right. And then I'm going to have you guys go into Nexus Uni with me, which used to be LexisNexis. I think they have made some major improvements on their content. So Nexus Uni, I think, is pretty good for looking at company information and some market reports and reports in general. The easiest way to do that, there's two different ways you can run this search. You can either do an advanced search, which I'll click on in a moment, Or if you just want to do a guided search, you can click on company information and then type in your company. We're going to, again, pick on Starbucks. But then you can choose from this drop-down, do you want a company profile? Do you want all company information? Do you want an analyst report, merger and acquisition, or SEC filings? It's up to you how you want to run that search. So again, they're kind of building it for you. I'll come back and do that, but I want to show you that you can actually do this under advanced search too. It just takes a couple of extra clicks. So if you were looking for a specific content type, you would click on select a specific content type, and then you would come here and click on company and financials. And if you wanted company profiles, it's going to change that drop down for you. And if we wanted to search for Starbucks, we certainly could. So there's two different ways to do that, or if you're going to put in a company name here again, or your NAICS code, depending on what you're looking for, you can do that too. So let's go back to that home page. And then we'll do company info, and again, Starbucks. And we're gonna leave it at company profile, but you can change that if you want to. And then it'll show you, a lot of these companies will have, branches that are outside of the United States, or if that company's from outside the United States, they might show you some of the US branches. It just depends on what you're looking for. It'll also show you in a section here like what you're actually looking for, company profile, and then it'll show you who's showing you that information. So WorldBase is providing us information. I'm not exactly sure who the official board is, but if we open that up, it'll give us some information. Experian, more Experian data as far as company profiles. But if you want to see who the sources are, or where that information is coming from, you can click on sources, or it's already kind of showing here. But you can kind of go through the different options that are available. So you'll see I think it's Dun & Bradstreet, which is, they do a lot of market reports, which might be useful. You could limit it by that. And I could have sworn they had Hoover's in here too. So it's up to you on what you want to click. But it should tell you what kind of information you're hoping to find. So let's try global data company profiles. And then we want to see maybe the most recent year. Okay. And we're looking at the Starbucks company profile from global data, company overview. Super, super short. So it just depends on what you end up clicking on and what you're looking for. So maybe, we want to look for locations of subsidiaries, or we're looking for a global strategy, or maybe we want a SWOT analysis for Starbucks. There's a lot of different things you can click into to get access about those particular companies. So that's just one way of narrowing it down by company information. Let's try and do, company, and then let's just do coffee shop. See what we get. Great. So, it looks like you're going to get stuff from all over the board. Things that are smaller retail inside of a large, a larger organization or company, coffee shops in general, or this happens to maybe be a coffee shop named Coffee Shop, which is actually kind of find that humorous. So there's a lot of different ways you can search in here. Again, you can come down to the sources and get an idea of what kind of reports are available, click through them and see what kind of information that they would provide. So a student was looking at wanting to see the SWOT analysis of Netflix. So if we wanted to run that search over again, instead of looking at company profiles, I think what I would do is just type in Netflix and do SWOT and rerun the search. And then probably come down here and look at sources and try and find, a company profile that we might be able to use. Or in this case, you might be able to go back and take a look, because it looks like these are coming from news organizations, which is fine. I mean, that might work for what you're hoping to find. If you're looking for more of that company profile SWOT analysis, we might have to rerun the search and make it more specific. But again, it just depends on what you're looking for, what you're hoping to get. But you know, probably not every single company is going to have the same kind of company reports. I imagine the Fortune 500s are going to have more content available. I know I've had some students who are researching for, you know, it might be a larger regional business, but there's just not as much data pulled for them just because maybe they're not international or they're not completely domestic. So it just depends. It completely depends on what company you're researching and what you're hoping to find. All right, so the last one I want to show you guys is ReferenceUSA. So ReferenceUSA is a little bit different than everything we had just kind of looked at. This is going to be more of a regional thing. So if you are looking for information on businesses close to you or in an industry, and then there is some information on consumer behavior too. So we'll take a look at that. But if you click on US businesses, you could come in here, look for that company, and then find that information. Again, I'll pick on good old Starbucks for this. And we have a lot, right? Because we're looking at all the branches across the United States, and that's about 14,000. So if you wanted to know who owned a specific franchise for Starbucks, assuming that they provide individual franchises, you can come in here and find that information if you wanted to. The thing I like looking at is this advanced search. So unless you have a particular company that you're hoping to find, I think the advanced search is probably the easiest way to go. Now, if you want to search by company name, again, you certainly can. So if you wanted to type in Starbucks or Netflix or something like that, you certainly could. Although some companies are going to be very specific where you're going to find them. Some of them, you know, you're going to have branches or different locations for those organizations. So I'm going to uncheck out of company name because I want to show you that you can do keywords if you want to. So if you just wanted to see, again, what kind of coffee shops. Oh, and this is going to pull the NAICS codes for us. So if we do coffee, you know, so we could click on coffee and tea manufacturing, which is maybe not exactly what we're hoping to find as far as if we're looking for Starbucks, because they're not necessarily the manufacturer. But you can certainly try searching by whatever term you're hoping to locate. So we could say retail, and you know, we've got miscellaneous store retailers or retail bakeries. I think this is based off of a previous search I had done. So if we do bakery, great. You have different options here for breads and tortilla manufacturing and bread and baking product manufacturing. So it depends if you want to narrow this down by NAICS code. Again, you don't have to go by the way that they've indexed it in here. You can just go to the NAICS code website, the government website, to try and find that information and search by that exact NAICS code if you want to. But you can narrow it down this way. So I'm going to uncheck it and go to the major industry group. Again, here it is pre-formatted for you, kind of like the taxonomy and broken down by area. So if you wanted to do retail, and then I think I had done eating and drinking places, eating places, and then I think coffee shops is all the way down here. So we've chosen coffee shops, and then, you know, you can search by a geographic location. You know, maybe you want to see, you're hoping to break it into a specific neighborhood or zip code. You could come in here and say, okay, well, I want to see how many other coffee shops there are within, we'll say, 15 miles of this zip code. So then we update the count. So we're down to 527, and then we can view our results. And then you can come in here and get an idea of, you know, which other coffee shops are in your area. If you want detail information, I'll have to click on it. So if you want details of that information, if you click on details, you can go through all of them and get more information. So the first one was Starbucks. Another Starbucks. Then we can look at, there's one here called Caribou Coffee. It gives you industry information, hours of operation, any other information that might be available. It looks like this particular one opened in 2013, how many employees they have. Again, you can do a lot of digging into those companies if you want to. So heading back here, you can also do a heat map. I would open that and show you, except it requires Java, and my Java doesn't function properly on my computer. So just know you can also do a heat map to see where the most coffee shops are, whatever company or industry you've chosen. You can see where the most of those companies are based off the map or the zip code that you've chosen. So if you want to revise your search, you certainly could. You could do it by number of employees, sales volume. So we want to see maybe only the organizations that make less than 500,000. And then we update the count, and now we're down to 149. And so you could review those results again. You could look in here based on the year established. So if you're hoping to find the companies that have been around for the last 10 years, or I guess you could say at least 10 years, you could head back to, unfortunately, I don't think there's a way to do a range, which kind of drives me crazy, but just know that you could do 10, 15 years of when those years were established, update your count, and there's only 11 that have been open. There might be a lot more based off of the previous dates, but 18 years, 11 years, and then you could review your results there too. And this would be a little easier list of coffee shops to dig through too. I mean, based off of their income and how long they've been open. So that's the general US businesses database information that they have. I'm going to click and go back to the home page. So one of my favorite things to do in here is look at the historical businesses information. So again, you can search by a company name and look for historical database or historical information if you want to. You can do an advanced search very much like we just done in that previous, or you could come in here and compare businesses. Now I think this is pretty cool. So I had to come up with some pre-formatted things so we wouldn't get lost with me typing in content, but I'm going to do some comparisons of different coffee shops in a certain location. So we'll compare. And we'll say Caribou. So I know that these happen to be coffee shops in an area. Why won't it let me select that one? I must have had, there we go. I had too many in my list. So I've picked 5 different coffee shops in this zip code to compare to each other. So it'll give me information about when they opened, and then their sales volume, how much they make a year. It looks like for some reason they made a lot of money in 2008. Not sure why, but sure did. And then comparison, as far as date. And then you could also see, well, how many people do they employ? And I think that's pretty cool that you can come in here and make a comparison for that. So if you were looking to, again, open a business and you were hoping to find, okay, these businesses are doing well, they're my main competition. What's their sales volume? How long have they been open and how many employees do they have? That can be really helpful information. So that compare business, I think that's interesting if that's something of value to you, depending on what you're doing. I'm not going to rerun this search just because this is very, very similar to what we had just done in the US business search, but just know this is going to give you more historical context. Okay, so back to that main page again. The last thing I'm going to point out is this US consumers and lifestyle section. Great. So if you wanted to search by a specific person, you certainly could, depending on what you're looking for. But what you can do is do an advanced search and then just look at, an area code or a geographic area and specific kinds of lifestyles if you wanted to. So if we were looking at a metro area, we could say Let's look California, and we will pick on, who are we going to pick on? Let's do San Diego. They've got a lot of people. All right. And then we could say home income. How much money are these people making? You know, we're going to say, okay, we're looking for people who make as a combined income this much money. And then if we have any lifestyles that we want to look for, you could narrow this down. Look for people who are interested in dogs. And then we're going to update our count. And then view our results. And then, so if you needed a mailing list, you could certainly do it this way. You know, if you were just starting a company and you were looking for people of a certain income bracket or if they worked in a certain industry, you might be able to find that information. Let's go back again. This could help you get a list of people that you might be able to put on a marketing or, you know, if you wanted to send out flyers or something, or if you wanted to try and find an area of town to put your business in, that might be a good way to do it. So let's do this based on age. And we'll say, you know, I'll just pick on these age ranges and just say update count and view results. And then because we've picked something to organize that information by, you can do a chart, a matrix, or a table. We'll just say age again and show summary. And so out of the 1,200 results we got for the people within an age range who are interested in dogs, the most people that are interested in dogs are between ages of 35 and 39. So it depends on how you want to change your chart here. So let's view results again. And then if you want to do a matrix, I think the table is actually the easiest thing to look at. Oh, they're going to make me pick one. All right, so let's do estimated home income. Great. So the 2,500 records we had, you know, here's how many people are, you know, have an estimated household income of this amount of money on people related to people who are interested in dogs. So you could do that in a whole bunch of different ways, limiting your results. Great. And then if you wanted to do just general income, you could do that. Home value, if you're looking by gender, looking for kids, there you go. So hopefully that made sense. If anybody wants me to rerun through that, I certainly can. We've only got about 5 minutes left for questions. I know that was a ton of content. If you have I'll go back and look through the questions that we had during the webinar. If I missed anything, I will definitely reach out to you one-on-one. Let me see if we've got anything in here. Oh, okay, it looks like I missed one. All right, so I will come back to that and I will email you directly. I don't see any other questions popping in, but just know that you can reach out to the library with any follow-up questions that you have from this webinar. You'll also get a follow-up or email from us tomorrow within 24 hours. It has a link to the recording, and that should have my email address attached to it. So if you have questions, you can just hit reply and say, hey, again, where did you find this? Or what was that one thing with IBIS that you did? And we'll go from there. So I don't see any questions. So thanks again for coming today. After the webinar's ended, there will be a survey. So feel free to let me know what I could do better next time or what you really enjoyed. I'm happy to get both kinds of feedback. They just help me do a better job next time. So thanks for showing up today. Hopefully I see you in future webinars, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.